Waiting has a peculiar way of unmasking the heart. It presses against our impatience, exposes the hidden currents of our desires, and reminds us that we are not the masters of time. In waiting, the soul often feels suspended between hope and silence, like standing in the shadow of a promise not yet fulfilled. And yet, if we look more closely, we begin to see that waiting is not the absence of God's activity, but the subtle stage upon which His greater favor is being prepared. Consider this: when a seed is placed in the soil, nothing appears to change for weeks. To the eye it seems dead, forgotten beneath the earth. But in truth, life is stirring in secret places. Roots are stretching downward before shoots reach upward. The waiting season is not wasted. It is the hidden work that ensures the visible fruit will one day endure. So it is with us. God is working in the unseen, shaping character, steadying faith, and enlarging the capacity of our hearts to hold what He intends to give. We often imagine that favor means immediate blessing, swift answers, and doors opening without delay. But favor is not merely a gift. It is a weight, and without preparation it can crush rather than crown. This season of waiting is the season of strengthening, when God quietly fits us for what He is about to entrust to us. It is here that He bends our will closer to His, teaching us to trust the giver more than the gift, and to love His presence more than His provision. Waiting teaches us to hunger for what endures. It loosens our grip on temporary comforts and draws us toward eternal realities. In the stillness, when prayers seem unanswered, He is bending the arc of our desires so that they align with His greater story. What feels like delay may in fact be protection. What feels like silence may be the preparation of a voice that will one day call us into a larger room than we ever imagined. Do not mistake hiddenness for abandonment. This silence of God is never the absence of God. Just as the artist sketches outlines before the final strokes of color, God is shaping the contours of your destiny in the waiting. When His favor is revealed, it will not come as a fragile spark, but as a steady flame, because your soul has been tempered in the fire of patience. So let your waiting be a holy ground. Do not despise it, nor rush to escape it. For when God releases what He has prepared, you will see that the very season you wished away was the season that fitted you for His greater favor. The delay was not denial. It was the hand of a Father ensuring that when the blessing comes, it will not just visit, it will remain. Waiting is not wasted time, but hidden preparation, like roots growing underground before the tree appears. Waiting is one of the most misunderstood seasons of life because it feels like stillness, like being set aside while the rest of the world is moving forward. Yet in reality, waiting is not wasted time but hidden preparation. Just as the farmer does not panic when he cannot see the seed breaking through the soil, so God is not idle when we cannot trace His hand. The earth may look unchanged, but beneath its surface something essential is happening. Roots are stretching deeper, foundations are being secured, and a silent strength is forming that will one day support visible growth. If the seed were forced to sprout before the roots were ready, it would wither under the weight of its own potential. The waiting is the unseen mercy, a space where God ensures that when the moment of revelation comes, it is not fragile but enduring. In our lives, the same principle is at work. What appears as a delay is often the deepening of roots. God allows seasons where progress is hidden because He is preparing something that cannot be rushed. Character is being shaped in silence, patience is being forged in the unseen, and endurance is being built where no one applauds. These inner workings matter more than we often realize, for they determine whether we can carry the blessings we long for without collapsing under them. A person unprepared for favor can be destroyed by it, but a person who has been tested in waiting will find that favor becomes a platform rather than a snare. Waiting also refines our perspective. It loosens our grip on the illusion that we control the timeline of our lives. We begin to see that real strength does not come from grasping but from trusting. Just as a child cannot demand that spring arrives sooner, we cannot demand that God's seasons bend to our impatience. Instead, waiting trains us to live in trust, to believe that the unseen hand is working even when nothing appears to move. This trust transforms the heart from restless striving to quiet assurance, and it is in this assurance that we find the courage to endure. The soil of waiting is also the place where faith matures. It is easy to believe when answers come swiftly, but true faith is proven when prayers linger unanswered and yet hope remains. Every day of waiting becomes an act of belief that the God who promised is faithful, even if the promise is not yet visible. Over time, this faith becomes like the roots of the tree, hidden, strong, and able to withstand storms. Without such roots, the first strong wind would topple the tree, but with them it stands firm through every season. Waiting, then, is not simply about enduring time, but about being prepared for the weight of what is to come. It is about being hidden, so that when the time arrives, we will be strong enough to hold it. God uses waiting to strengthen character, so His blessings will not crush us but crown us. God uses waiting to strengthen character because character cannot be formed in moments of ease. It is forged in the tension of what we desire and what has not yet arrived. When doors remain closed and prayers seem suspended in the air, it is not because God delights in withholding, but because He knows the weight of what He intends to give. Favor is not simply about blessings poured out. It is about the vessel that must hold them. If the vessel is weak, it cracks under the strain, but if it is strengthened through the refining of waiting, it becomes capable of carrying far more than it ever imagined. This strengthening process cannot be rushed, for it is in the silence and the seeming delay that integrity, humility, and endurance are formed. Patience is one of the first fruits that grows in waiting. And patience is not passive resignation, but the active choice to trust when nothing seems to move. In a world that teaches us to demand instant results, patience feels like loss, but in the kingdom of God, patience is the soil where wisdom and maturity flourish. Waiting forces us to confront our impulses, to learn self-control, and to surrender our timelines to a higher plan. This quiet discipline becomes a guardrail for the future, ensuring that when favor comes, we will not squander it in haste or pride. Without patience, blessing becomes a burden. With patience, blessing becomes a stewardship. Humility, too, is sharpened in the waiting. When the world overlooks us, when recognition does not come, when opportunities pass us by, we are faced with the question of whether our worth lies in the applause of men or in the approval of God. In waiting, we are stripped of illusions that we can earn or manipulate our way into divine favor. We learn that all is grace, and that grace cannot be demanded, only received. This humility creates a foundation that can sustain honor without arrogance, influence without corruption, and success without losing sight of the source. Without humility, favor exalts the ego. With humility, favor exalts the name of God. Endurance is another treasure carved out in the hidden places of delay. To endure is to hold steady when everything in you wants to quit, to remain faithful when every voice suggests walking away. Endurance is not glamorous, but it is indispensable. Every great purpose requires it, for the road to fulfillment is rarely straight. Waiting trains the heart to endure, to remain steadfast in the small things, to trust in the unseen, and to keep moving forward even when the pace feels painfully slow. Endurance does not make us immune to weariness, but it gives us the strength to rise again, to keep believing, and to remain ready for the day favor is revealed. Through patience, humility, and endurance, waiting becomes the workshop of the soul. These are not qualities we stumble upon in moments of triumph. They are qualities shaped in seasons where triumph feels distant. The very character that is tested in waiting becomes the anchor when favor arrives, for without that anchor, the weight of blessing can sweep a life off course. What feels like delay is in fact preparation, shaping us into vessels strong enough to hold what God intends to entrust. Silence is not absence. God often works in unseen ways while we feel delayed. Silence is not absence because the quiet of God often holds more meaning than the noise of the world. When prayers rise without an immediate reply, the heart can be tempted to believe it has been abandoned, but the reality is far different. Silence does not mean God has turned his face away. Silence often means he is working in a dimension we cannot yet perceive. Just as a teacher is silent during the test, God too withholds immediate answers so that what he has already spoken can take root in us. The silence is not a void, but a canvas on which trust is painted, where faith deepens and reliance grows stronger. There is a paradox in silence, for it feels empty, yet it is full of purpose. Think of the night sky, vast and quiet, holding countless stars that only reveal themselves to those willing to wait and look deeply. In the same way, God's silence holds truths and treasures that are hidden from the hurried soul. Those who endure silence without turning away discover that His presence is still near, whispering in subtler ways, shaping them with a depth that words alone could never achieve. Silence has the power to refine our listening, to tune our hearts to hear not just the obvious but the eternal. In silence we learn that God is not bound to our schedules or our expectations. His work often takes place in hidden chambers where no human eye can see. The roots of transformation sink deep in these unseen places, and the soul is stretched beyond surface faith into a deeper confidence. If He spoke at every moment, if He answered every request instantly, we would never learn to lean on who He is apart from what He gives. Silence forces us to ask whether we trust His character more than His gifts, whether His presence is enough even when His hand seems still. There is also a protective mercy in God's silence. Sometimes the answers we long for are not ready to be revealed, for to hear them too soon would do more harm than good. Just as a child cannot understand the wisdom of a parent's delay, so we often cannot see that the silence is shielding us from burdens we are not prepared to carry. It is not that God withholds out of cruelty, but that He withholds out of love, guarding our steps until the right moment comes. In time, the silence gives way to revelation, and when it does, we see that the delay was not neglect but perfect timing. Silence also creates space for transformation within us. It humbles the restless heart and teaches dependence, for in silence our illusions of control fade. We cannot manipulate answers, we can only wait and trust. This posture builds resilience, a quiet strength that cannot be shaken by circumstances. It makes us attentive to the small ways God reveals Himself, through peace in the storm, through the kindness of others, through the scriptures that suddenly illuminate with new meaning. In the absence of a loud voice, we learn to cherish the gentle nudges that guide us closer to His will. Delays are divine protection, reshaping our desires to align with God's greater story. Delays are divine protection because not every door that looks promising leads to life, and not every opportunity that shines with appeal is aligned with the purpose God has prepared. What feels like a setback to us is often a safeguard in His hands, a barrier placed on the path to prevent us from stepping into something that would ultimately harm us. The human heart sees only fragments of the picture, but God sees the whole landscape, and in His mercy, He withholds certain outcomes until the timing and conditions are right. Delay is not rejection, it is a shield that guards the soul from dangers it cannot yet perceive. When we ask and do not immediately receive, the natural impulse is to assume we are being ignored, but the truth is often that we are being spared. Just as a parent does not hand a sharp blade to a child simply because the child insists, God withholds certain things until we are mature enough to handle them wisely. The very delay that frustrates us is the means by which He saves us from misusing what we desire or being crushed beneath its weight. In time, we often look back with gratitude, recognizing that the pause we resented was the very thing that preserved us. Divine delays also serve to align our desires with God's greater story. Left to ourselves, our longings are often short-sighted, shaped by immediate gratification rather than eternal significance. Waiting purifies these desires, stripping away what is shallow so that what remains is what truly matters. We begin to ask differently, to long not only for what pleases us but for what glorifies Him. The delay refines us until we can say with sincerity that His will is better than our own, even when it unfolds in ways we did not expect. It is in the waiting that our vision shifts, and the very thing we once resented becomes a tool that deepened our dependence. Delays also prepare the environment around us, not just the heart within us. Sometimes God must move pieces into place, open hearts, or orchestrate circumstances beyond our reach before the blessing can arrive. To us, It feels like nothing is happening, but in reality, 1,000 invisible movements are occurring on our behalf. People are being positioned, opportunities are being shaped, and conditions are being adjusted to ensure that when the door opens, we will walk into a space ready to receive us. The delay is not emptiness, it is the unseen orchestration of providence. Even creation itself testifies to this rhythm. A harvest cannot be forced before its season, for if plucked too soon, the fruit is bitter and incomplete. In the same way, blessings received prematurely do not carry the sweetness they were meant to hold. The delay is not a punishment but a promise that when the time comes, the fruit will be ripe, nourishing, and lasting. We are invited to trust that the pauses are filled with purpose, that the doors which remain closed are closed out of love, and that every withheld answer is part of a larger story of care. Greater favor requires deeper capacity. The waiting season enlarges the heart to carry what is coming. Greater favor requires deeper capacity because what God longs to pour into our lives is often far larger than what we are able to hold in the present moment. The human heart, left unprepared, cannot contain the weight of blessing without cracking under its strain. Just as a wineskin must be stretched before it can hold new wine, our souls must be enlarged in seasons of waiting to carry what God intends to release. Waiting is the divine method of stretching, not to cause harm, but to expand our inner life until it is capable of receiving and stewarding something far greater than what we once imagined. Capacity is not built in moments of ease, but in times of testing. The waiting season becomes the training ground where faith is stretched, endurance is lengthened, and perspective is widened. Each day of delay forces us to lean more fully on God, and with every lean, our hearts grow stronger. This strengthening may not be visible, but it is essential, for it is laying the framework of resilience and wisdom needed to walk faithfully once the blessing arrives. Without this enlargement, favor would overwhelm rather than uplift. Deep capacity is not just about strength, but about depth of trust. In waiting, we learn to anchor ourselves not in outcomes, but in the character of God. The longer the delay, the deeper the roots of trust grow, until faith is no longer shallow but anchored in something immovable. This trust makes us vessels that can hold favor without fear of it being lost, for our security is not in the gift but in the giver. The waiting has carved out room in us where dependence becomes second nature, and it is this dependence that sustains favor when it comes. The heart must also be expanded in compassion, for favor is never meant to terminate on ourselves. God enlarges our capacity so that what He gives can overflow into the lives of others. Waiting softens pride, teaches empathy, and opens our eyes to those who walk through similar seasons. When favor arrives, it does not rest in selfish hands but flows outward, blessing communities, lifting burdens, and pointing others back to the source. Without this widened vision, favor becomes stagnant, but with it, favor becomes a river that nourishes many. Greater capacity also means greater responsibility. Waiting trains us in the quiet disciplines that seem small but carry immense weight. Faithfulness in prayer, diligence in hidden tasks, integrity when no one is watching. These practices stretch the heart, preparing it to bear the responsibilities that come with greater blessing. A life that has been disciplined in obscurity will not be destroyed in visibility, for the strength was built in secret long before the spotlight appeared. Waiting ensures that when we step into greater favor, we do so with the shoulders to carry it and the wisdom to use it rightly.